Easter isn't something we celebrate on a fixed date every year. The date shifts. Some of our Protestant and Pentecostal intellectual friends claim this proves Easter is actually a pagan festival. This is our fifth video exploring the pagan roots accusation. Today we are going to examine why Easter doesn't have a fixed date and how this Easter calculation date is calculated. Before we dive in, let's be clear about what Easter is all about. Like I mentioned in my third video, in almost every European language except English and German, this feast is called Pascha. It's the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I would like to believe that any sensible Pentecostal or Protestant wouldn't try to argue that the resurrection itself is tied to some pagan goddess. The reality is, Easter is inextricably related to the Jewish Passover. Now, I have a question for those Pentecostal intellectual friends. The Passover that Jesus celebrated is still observed by the Jews today. But does it actually land on the same date in our calendar every single year? No. Now, what exactly is this Passover? It's the remembrance of the Israelites' escape from the slavery in Egypt. When the 10 plagues hit Egypt, as part of the 10th plague, the firstborn of the Egypt were killed. But God protected the homes of the Israelites. He literally passed over them. In the Jewish calendar, this 7-day festival starts on the 15th of the month of Nisan. Looking at the Bible, we can see Jesus celebrating this Passover festival with his disciples, which we call the Last Supper. It was right after this Passover celebrations that Jesus was crucified and rose again on the third day. So now the connection is obvious. Easter date is timed to coincide with the Passover festival date on the 15th of Nisan in the Jewish lunisolar calendar, which is about 354 days long. In other words, Easter date is aligned with the Jewish Passover date without being strictly tied to it. It's basic logic. Any event based on a 354-day lunisolar calendar isn't going to land on the same date every year in our Gregorian solar calendar, which is of 365 days long. Nisan is the first month of the Jewish religious calendar. It starts with a new moon, which means by 14th of Nisan you have a full moon. That evening is when the Jewish people start their Passover celebrations. So, Passover is always a full moon event. Now, there's a slight difference in how we calculate our Easter date compared to the Passover date. In the Bible, the month is called Abib, and Passover lands right on the full moon. In our modern calendar, it usually happens in the late March or early April. This year in 2026, it's on April 2nd. Easter, however, is set for the very first Sunday, following the first full moon after the vernal equinox, which is March 21st. Easter wasn't always celebrated the way it is now. In the early days of the church, there were heated debates, disagreements, and controversies over when the celebration should happen. I will go into much more detail on that in my next video. But the short version is this. One group of believers celebrated Easter on the 15th of Nisan, the actual date of Passover, the full moon day, while another group preferred to celebrate it on the Sunday that followed because Jesus' resurrection was on the Sunday following the Passover. It wasn't until the Council of Nicaea in AD 325 that the entire church finally reached a consensus. It's important to realize that the council didn't invent a new holiday. What they did was settle a centuries old debate so that the church worldwide could celebrate the resurrection on the same day. We saw in our previous videos, we celebrate Easter on the first Sunday after the first full moon following March 21st. That is, after the spring equinox. In reality, the church took this decision so that the Easter celebration would not drift backward in the calendar each year. We know that the Jewish calendar is a lunisolar calendar which has approximately 354 days, while our Gregorian calendar has 365 days. Because of this 11 days difference, if there is no precise calculation, the date of Easter would slowly drift backward every year, with the possibility of drifting from the spring season into the winter season. The Jewish month Nisan is a springtime month, occurring in the spring season like our month of April. But as we saw, because the Jewish calendar, the lunisolar calendar, is 11 days shorter, a seasonal drift or a calendar drift occurs. Due to this drift, the Passover or Easter celebrations could potentially drift backwards from spring season into the winter season. The church made this decision to celebrate Easter after the spring equinox on March 21st, specifically to avoid this drift and to ensure that Easter is always celebrated during the springtime. With this formula, Easter will land somewhere between March 22nd and April 25th on our calendar. To sum it up, resurrection has been the heart of Christianity from day one. It's clear that neither the origin of the feast nor the way we pick the date have anything to do with paganism. The evidence shows that this celebration is deeply rooted in the Jewish Passover.